Punters, here we are for Punting Melbourne style. Now this is actually going to be, it's going to go up on the YouTube as part 3, Rexy, but we're doing it before parts 1 and 2, so that could be interesting. And with any luck, Ralphie will be joining us for parts 1 and 2. So I'll make a proper introduction of you to the viewers then, because I'll be watching this third probably. So
that's good to be fresh for part 3.
Yeah, it is good. So what we're going to do is going to discuss a little bit about something that happened last Wednesday at Sandown, and a bit of a chat about the VOP, a couple of punting stories, and a young jockey on the ride. So last Wednesday at Sandown, I went out and walked the track on Tuesday about 2 o'clock, expecting that after I walked it, the best part of an inch of rain would fall. Now it didn't arrive, so I did all the form on Tuesday night, basically looking for really fit horses that were suited on a testing track. Predominantly, and then had to, get up on Wednesday morning and go over all those races that I'd done, just to modify them for what was eventually a good 4 track. So what that meant was the set went out probably 15 to 20 minutes later than I would like, after the VOP kicks in at 9 AM, and
the MBL.
Oh, the minimum bet rules. Sorry, I should say. Thanks, Rexy. The minimum bet limits, and Rexy's like, it's worth saying this to the punters. There's a great book called Enemy Number 1, written by Patrick Veach, who's a big punter in England that took the corporates there for a heat, and he talks about doing the form. You need to be surgical, and then when you're betting, you need to be a bit of a mad axeman. Now I'm not quite there as a mad axeman, but Rexy is. Rexy's the best. He's uninhibited in thought when it comes to betting, and he really does take advantage of situations when they present themselves. So anyway, so the set went to subscribers about 20 past 9, and you sent me an email a little while later pointing some things out that were really valuable. So I just want to have a bit of a conversation about that, the horses involved, and what difference it makes to the result on the day.
Yep.
So the first one was what? Cannot be serious?
Cannot be serious. So I've got the email in front of me, so that'll help me trigger who was who, because after 5 or 6 days it all becomes a blur to me anyway. Now some of these you hadn't recommended to take the fixed price, and look, when Potts does recommend I take the fixed price, they're the first ones that I go to back. But some of them that you haven't recommended take the fixed price, I still will in some cases. Yeah. If I can, just by sniffing around what all the other corporates are doing, what other judges are doing. If there's a real push from 5 or 6 good judges, there's obviously everyone out there has got their own list of who their favourite judges are, but there are some good guys out there that you can get intelligence on, and if they're all pushing a horse, they're all making it their best, and you start seeing a few corporates starting to turn it off, then I know it's time to step in, especially with the one corporate that very generously gives us SPG. So Cannot Be Serious was a good example of that, where you hadn't recommended taking the fixed price, but it was $5 until 9:08. So it was 8 minutes there for someone to get set at $5. Cannot Be Serious. Now, oddly enough, Wednesday was a strange day. The corporates were betting a much bigger percentage than normal. 365 is normally at 120 by 9 o'clock, even on Wednesday. It's sometimes low, maybe 122 on Wednesday, but they're all 127, 128. So I always thought there's probably a little bit more movement. Something's going to go out, but Cannot Be Serious is one where it just kept coming in. So the $5 went off at 9:08. Yeah. All of a sudden it was hard to get set around 360. So for some people they would have parked that and thought I'll come back to that later, and it just got shorter and shorter and shorter during the day. Yeah. So that was one where I would have had the maximum to win 2,000 at $5 at 9:08, and I ended up averaging 360. Yeah. So if you're having,
you did better than me, because I averaged 330 on that horse, and it was a mistake on my part. I'd identified that Nakar was a really dubious favourite and was far too short, but I thought the horses that would shorten because they were on the fringe of the market were Don't Get Excited and Presentia. Now, in the end, they both drifted, and all the big teams all just landed on Cannot Be Serious, and it actually got in as short as 6-4 at one stage, and then drifted back out to the 320 starting price. So, yeah, it's a but it is a good example for the punters of what can currently happen in the marketplace, particularly in races where they've identified a really dubious favourite.
So if you're having the maximum on that, that's at $5, it's 500.
Yeah.
So at 500 at $5, you're going to win 2 grand. 500 at 320, you're going to win 1100.
Yeah.
So the difference, like, it's virtually double. It's a huge turnaround on makes a difference between winning and losing for me.
Yeah.
I can't win unless I've just almost got the maximum prices in as many cases as possible.
Yeah.
It's just the edge that I've got.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of the days, a lot of them, that's where the result falls just either side of break even with a small profit or a small loss. And it's on days like that where taking those prices make all the difference. So anyway.
The next one was Arbiro. Now this was a real unusual case because it was 320 until 9:04. Then when your set came out at 9:20, it was the best price was 260 with 365, and most of the corporates were 240.
Yep.
And the market was around about 129, 130%. So that's one I sat on. I said, this is caved right in. This will come out. So I actually only put a little bit on at that stage, but in the end I averaged 230 because it just kept shortening and shortening and shortening, and it went around about $2 from memory, or maybe $2.10.
I think paid $1.90 the totes, across the totes. Very.
So,
and what the amazing part about that was a goose, which was the other alternative in the race, continued to shorten the whole time that Arbiro was shortening.
Well, it did get out, got out to about 420 at one stage.
Yeah.
But then it started coming back in, went 420, 380, 360, 340, and that whole time Arbiro didn't budge, or maybe it budged 10 cents. So they basically, the market decided there were only 2 chances, the rest were legless. A 50 to 1 shot nearly won the race.
Yeah.
But Wassergeist was probably a stride away from winning.
And it was a reasonably bunch finished. I think the market got carried away then and overbet those 2 horses. So, they're the ones that I just go up on. And they were fairly small bets on our plan anyway. But a big difference between taking 320, as you said, and taking even money if you took best total.
If you took best total, $1.90. I mean, it's just tragic. There's, if you're having 900 on it, and it's cost you more than 1,000 to your bottom line result for the day. I'll do the other 2 quickly if you want, because we've sort of laboured the point. La Chica Rosa was 550 until 9:08. I ended up averaging 420, and I think it came in even shorter than that, came into the mid threes.
Yeah, about 380. I think it actually got back out to about that 420 late. But,
And the last one was Bonus Dioro, and that was one you recommended taking the early prices, and I think you recommended 380. So it must have gone off. It was $5 until 9:18.
Yeah, well, I didn't even do the form for that race until
that's right. That came out later.
About 9:15, I think. And by the time I did the form, I had no problem marking that horse 2 to 1. Went to the market, saw it was 420. Started taking 420 myself, and quickly shot an email off to you guys to say take whatever price you can. I mean, and I'm still astonished. I still can't work out how that horse went around 550. I don't really get it. I can only assume that the big teams have some flag on the Mildura form that prevented them from steaming into it, because it was a very hollow race, and when you watch the race, she won like a 2 to 1 chance. So anyway,
it turned out exactly like you suggested. She said she had lengths on the field. Very surprised that she didn't win, and a little bit touched. It was in the low 6s on the fair as they jumped. So I actually put a little bit more on than the betting plan, because I was so annoyed at having taken some fixed $4 at 9:30. So it ended up being a good result for me, but I would have been far better off on the $5 SPG. So it was an unusual day. Not normally do you get punished so hard for coming out 15 minutes after 9 o'clock, but this was a classic day where it was really cruel.
Yeah, as a result of that conversation, that circumstance. I mean, normally I try very hard to get the set out at 8:55, right? So, and that is usually what happens. It was just the circumstances on the day where we had a lot of emergencies in the late races, so I had to wait for scratchings to even do the form for those races, and then we had the expected testing track turning into being a good fall. So anyway, the result is that for my subscribers, particularly on the Wednesdays, they get the full set. Whatever races I've done at 8:55, no matter how far I've got, I'll just send it, and then if there is a completed set to follow later, so be it. But hopefully it'll be the full set. But no matter what, everyone will get an email at 8:55 on Wednesdays to get ahead of that MBL kicking in.
Yeah, and of course Saturdays isn't a big issue for me because you've got the interim set out Friday afternoon, so I can pretty much predict your betting plan. on Friday afternoon, Friday evening. So I'm watching all those horses. I'm looking for any unsuspected moves early, like at 8 o'clock. All those punters that we love so much, that love getting in between 8 and 9, don't we love them? If you can get, it's been mentioned many times on this show, please hold off to 9 o'clock, but it's falling on deaf ears. If I was able to get on with those corporates at 8 o'clock, I would too. So I know no one's going to change their behaviour. I've conceded that that's a fact of life now.
Yeah. I guess what I was talking about last week, I was particularly talking about the smaller meetings, you know, and even the Wednesdays. Saturdays, it's not. But there's enough. You can find ways to get some money on early and stuff in the Saturday races, because they're all betting on it from Wednesday and everything else. But particularly those smaller meetings, particularly ones DK operates on, it's almost a complete waste of time betting early on them. The people that are doing it are just. It's not really helping them. It's not helping anyone else. It's only helping the corporates. So anyway, so also another thing that I spotted there last Wednesday, Rexy, and it's been something that's been building. I think we've got a new Bay Mertens this year, an apprentice that can potentially mount some sort of challenge for the premiership in Ethan Brown. He's an extremely talented rider. He's in very good hands. He's getting great advice, as Bay Mertens did from Mick Kent. He rides track patterns extremely well. His ride on Marauder Miss last Wednesday, it's very hard for me to describe how good that ride was, and punters will go and watch it, and they might, there's some subtleties there that aren't obvious if you're just watching the vision. You have to understand the wind on that though. That wind was a westerly, it was 50 degrees, it was a significant advantage to have a horse on your inside on the back straight. Now he drew inside and he made sure he did not get pinned to the rail, and he got out, and it actually forced Dwayne Dunn wide, and Dunn had to go back to the last where he was exposed to the wind on the main danger. And then at the key time of the race, Ethan was happy to slide 3 wide, knowing he was covered from the wind, to be in proximity to the leaders to win the race. It was, and you know, his 2 dangers, one was leading exposed to the wind, blazers. The other one was behind him, street spun. Dwayne Dunn wasn't sure what to do on it, exposed, and the ride on Marauder Miss was just exquisite. So well done to Ethan, and he rode He's a Magic Man just perfectly on the same day. And then there he is on Saturday. A lot of the other jockeys, for some explicable reason, looking to edge off the fence on the home turn there all day on Saturday. And Ethan, no, I'll stay nailed to the fence on here to there, and that won him the race. So I'm sure he's getting good advice, I said, from Mick Kent and the team there, who are very good at identifying the best parts of tracks. And but his riding is improving so quickly. So
I only got a couple of hours to get on. But if this is, what time are you going to put this up?
It'll go up about 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock tonight. Yeah. So yeah, well, Potts has already checked the markets, and he's not listed, so he would fall into the bracket of any unlisted jockey, which is Potts says is $11. So got a busy day today, but I might see if I can get a quote for specifically him and see what they can bet us before this goes up. Yeah, well, as we saw last year with Bo, when they get a bit of momentum, the apprentices and the trainers love those claims, particularly in the midweek meetings and the off-season Saturdays. You know, they can mount a challenge. So interesting to see how things pan out for Ethan. Well, if he had got set on Bo early in the year at some ridiculous price, 21, 33, whatever it might have been, or what he may be, when you get to the point of the season, you can just lay off on Craig or Ollie, whoever it is that's in that last challenge, the last 2. There's usually 2 left with a few weeks to go, and if you have to take $2 or $1.70, whatever it is Willow, to break even on that result, you know, it's worth a front stumps. Absolutely. It'll be massive odds. If it's $11 any unlisted jockey, he's going to be in the 30s or 40s, isn't he? I would have thought so. Immediately when I thought about it, I thought, I bet he's 50 to 1 if you can get a price for him. And obviously he's not listed, so you're going to have to ring them to get a specific price for him. So interesting, and see how that pans out. How are we going there? 14 and a half minutes, Potts. Oh, well, that's probably going to have to do us. We'll have to add the other bits in elsewhere, mate. So given that this is part 3, thanks for joining us, even though we're about to go and do parts 1 and 2. No worries. It's, hopefully the punters have enjoyed the whole thing.